Today is, like I said, I've been saying it like 3 times now. 4th episode of Mom's Word. This is the time when I talk to moms of young people, moms of teenagers, moms of young adults, and I find out what it's been like, raising a young person, raising a teenager. What are the highlights? What are the low times? What are the advices? What are the do's? What are the don'ts? And I mean, this normally follows up from what we normally do every 2 weeks, which is Young and Strong. When I talk to the young people, when I talk to they're usually young adults, and we find out what it's like being young. And a lot of times I normally ask them what their relationship is like with their parents. What are the things they wish mom would do? What are the things they wish mom wouldn't do? How can we build that relationship, with our parents, with our moms, And it's always really, really insightful. I really learn a lot, from them. And I'm sure the parents, the moms that have joined us on Young and Strong have really learned quite a lot from talking to our young people. They talk, we listen, and it's always been very insightful. So today I have a special guest, and I'm going to bring her up now because I don't like talking very much on these things. So I always think it's about my guest. I'm going to let her come up, and when she comes, she's going to introduce herself. Going to tell us, yes! Everyone, this is my sister, Olayide. This is my sister, Olayide. Hey, sister!
Hello, everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Hello, everybody.
I shouldn't be too excited. This is my sister, Olayide Williams. We can talk, so we will talk. There is no problem. This is my sister, Olayide Williams. She's the one joining us on Mom's Word today. And like I said, they talk, we listen. So, Olayide, tell us a little bit about yourself. Just introduce yourself to our lovely people.
Lovely guests. Okay. First of all, hello to all my sisters in the house from Canada to Lagos. So I have to be partial. I'm sorry. And hello to everybody else who's joined. My name is Olayide Williams. Most of you probably would know me as the younger sister to Aunty T. So if you don't know now, that's actually the secret. So I'm right after her. So what do I do? I work in a private portfolio gas and power company. I head the business origination. So I look after the development into new markets, so expansion into sub-Saharan Africa and beyond. Before that, I spent 19 years and 8 months working in Schlumberger, which was quite interesting. And I guess as we talk, you would see how sort of that played a role in my mothering or parenting style, as it were. After the ever elusive work-life balance, which, by the way, is a myth.
Why they don't say that though?
It is a myth. Trust me, sis. It is a myth. And then I'm mom to 2 girls. I have an 18 going 30-year-old who is just finished her first year in uni. And I have a 14 going 15, who's just running up her year 10. So she'll be sitting her GCSEs next. So that's sort of a lot of what forms the radio pattern of my life. And I'll answer more questions as we evolve.
All right, so thank you, Titi. I can see you've joined. Yemi, thanks. Deji, thanks. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Like I said, this is a very, very important episode to my heart because I've got my younger sister joining us here. So you can see her. She has told you all her serious stuff. We always have a gist about that all the time because she's always flying all over. Anyway, Olayide, let's talk about motherhood. Let's talk about parenting. What is it like now? We can see that you're a busy mom in the sense that you do work in a sector that's really busy. Oil and gas, we know, is really busy, and you've been doing it from since you left uni. Actually, if I remember,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
yes,
Practically since I
yes.
left university, yes.
Since you left university, you've been doing this thing forever, and I've been like, you have to stop all this traveling. Anyway, how have you been able to balance that busy part of your life with being a mom? What would you say have
Okay,
been the
so
things you've learned?
so first of all, a very interesting bit about this. Honestly, I would have missed this program because I was going to be
Yes,
flying to Houston.
and I would have
Um,
forgiven you.
I'm telling you. So, and I made a mistake with my timing. When I saw, 4 o'clock, I thought, okay, I'd have landed in Houston by then. But I was looking at Houston time, not Lagos time. So yeah, so I mean, just buttressing the fact that, it's at times I mix it up because it's just so hectic. So how do I
And
balance what
Bishop,
is friend
like
and
to see
big sis in the house. So I mean, how do I balance it? What has been the journey like and all? So first of all, I'll put a disclaimer. And good thing the kids are not on this program. Well, actually, one
oh,
of them
she
just
just
joined.
joined. Your daughter just joined. Ariella, girl, how are you, darling?
So yeah, so it's the first thing I would say, honestly, for everyone out there, there's no one size fits all. There is, that myth of this is the dedicated approach to A, B, C, D, and you'll be fine. It doesn't work. And what I've found is that for each journey, and as it is for each child, you have to navigate and build that path that works well for the peculiarities of the time and the season you're in, as well
Right.
as for the peculiarities of the particular child. And I'll give you an example. For me, it's been in phases. A phase of when the kids were young. So I would say for us, that phase probably lasted till maybe when they were like 10 years old. And we got either through work or what have you, we had the kids and we had the opportunity of, living cross border. So I always say my children are, there's a name for them. They're called third culture kids. And those are kids that have had the opportunity to live in countries beyond either their origination, where they're from, or, where they were born. At that point in time, I think is the most crucial in my experience, because that is when you're trying to lay down the value system, you're trying to lay down, what it is as, as a mom, to be able to pass on to the kids, so the value system, all the edicts of, you must get a good education, because for me, I found out that if you don't lay that foundation, then catching them at a later age, you're almost, you're doubling up on your speed. And luckily, I would say, hey, Sister B, I would
Oh,
say we had a good opportunity, because most of that time, at least especially for my older one, we lived mainly in Europe then. I think we were in the Netherlands about 4 or 5 years out of that, which, lends itself to that stability of having them brought up in the ideal system. Or when I say ideal, in terms of just laying the values that you want them to imbibe growing up. Obviously,
right.
it's not a race, because trust me, even as much as you do, there will always be detours along the way. But at least having that sense of value system, at that very young age, I think helps a lot. Especially because for me, like I said, I have girls, and as they grow
Yes.
older, trust me,
Mm,
it's a
mm,
different kettle of fish altogether. So just being able to put those strong foundation down, I think,
yeah.
is what has helped, with the formative years as they've grown older.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And that brings me to that interesting question. I mean, third culture kids. I
Mm-hmm.
filed that, you know, and I know my nieces have, had the opportunity of living different countries and all
Mm-hmm.
that. Now, my question would be them being exposed to these different cultures. How have you been able to straddle the different cultures? Because I know you and I, we were brought up under a very African culture, although we
Yes.
had, some values, a lot of
Western
African culture.
influence.
We
Yes.
had the Western influence
Yes,
and
we
all
did.
that.
We did.
So how do you make sure that they don't lose the value of our own traditional culture, but at the same time, you make sure they have those values that come from
Um,
the other cultures that they are
also
exposed to. So how are you able to balance that?
I think for me in particular, one of the things, especially as the kids were growing up, because the kids in that, I mean, for example, my younger one, her very first language was Dutch. She couldn't even speak English. And
Right.
even now, she's a linguist. She speaks, different, Spanish, French, English, a bit of Dutch, but she still doesn't really understand Yoruba. So it's
Ariel, I'm
a,
coming for
it's
you.
it's a real mixed bag. But what I've seen, what helped a lot for them was growing up. Even when we lived outside Nigeria, we had a lot of Nigerian influence. So, for example, I made sure, twice a year they were home for extended periods of time. And, being home means they're interacting with their aunties, their grandparents, especially who, make sure that all those culture of
Ariel thinks I'm
food
trying.
and all all the culture of the food and all was really forced down on them. And I think also society evolving also helps. So, like for my older one, she really, especially now, even though she's in university, she's been in England, well over 10 years, steadily now. But that whole culture of, being an African when it comes to music, to food, she really imbibes it a lot. And I always say that, especially for them, I say you can't imbibe the food, the culture, the music without imbibing as well the behavioral aspects of it, the culture in terms of how we address older ones. Because I remember my kids, used to have a thing about the way we greeted, our natural way of kneeling to greet. And I
Yes.
remember once, and it didn't help because when we moved to Nigeria, my kids then went to the American school,
Yeah.
and unfortunately for them as well, that quite a few of the things that they were taught went against the culture. So, for example, I remember my younger one telling me when she was all of 4, 5 years old that, oh, they did this whole slave trade thing in school, and kneeling down was what they made the slaves do, and so you just have to again change the narrative. And in my mind, I was thinking, maybe I should have taken them to Nigerian school at least as a breaker into Nigeria before putting them in AIS. But so I've always sort of tried to imbibe in them the fact that, look, you guys might be British by birth and Western educated and what have you, but they're just things in
Yes.
our culture. There's just a way we do things. So how we address adults, how we address the older folks, how we talk respectfully, how we mind our manners. And it was initially a struggle because honestly they wouldn't, especially when they go to school and they're used to, even in Nigeria, saying, they greet their parents, hello, hi, I'm sorry, their teachers. And then, they come home and, oh, hi, auntie. And I'm thinking, no, we don't say hi, auntie. We don't say hello, auntie. We don't, it's not us. And they're like, but my teacher says, I'm like, that's your teacher. Oh, this is real life. Yeah. So it was a lot of back and forth. But I think honestly, fundamentally, what really helped the most was just putting them in an environment where they mixed a lot with cousins, aunties, and uncles. So they just
Yeah.
had a glimpse into how we grew up. I would tell them, for example, how when we were young, we all vacationed at our grandparents. I'm sure you can remember,
Yes.
and
Of
how
course. Of
everybody was
course.
thrown together, and how, look, we
Of
had no
course.
choice but, to respect the hierarchy, even in terms of who ate first, who ate last, who had their bath first, all these things, you probably can't remember, but we had to leave that kind of, you know, lifestyle, and honestly
Yes.
we're
You
the
knew
better
who were
for
the
it.
older ones.
Exactly. And I say to them, for
Yeah.
example, that it's not as if, I mean, today, I mean, I'm glad, folks like Auntie Shaw, Stabuki, those are older sisters on the call, because
They're all on the.
we
They're
have
all
the
here
relation
now.
the relationship we have with them now transcends, there are people that you can pick up a call and say, look, I have, this or that, or, we can talk to them. We can go to them with issues because
Yeah.
we grew up in a society where we respected them 100%. And that sort
Yes.
of opened an avenue for us to access them because we built that relationship the proper way. So I always try and
Yes.
imbibe on them that, look, that is really, really important for them to know how to do that. So I think for
Right.
me, we were just blessed that we were able to interact a lot. And it was a conscious decision. And even now, I always say, I mean, obviously, forgetting the year that was, which was 2020. I mean, prior to that, even since I moved back home in 2017, I make it a point of duty for the kids to come home. Not
Right.
because it's, I'm enforcing that or it's easy, but also because they need to know where they come from. They need to know, I'm glad if you ask my kids, the older one, her favorite is Ogbono and Eba. The younger one, her favorite is Banga Starch. And yeah.
Two different parts of Nigeria, but hey,
Yes, we have our
like
Shekiri, we
you.
have our Shekiri heritage as well.
Of
But
course, of course.
and it's just and by the way, it's not like you take them to England or in Paris. I mean, they're lucky that they've traveled a lot, as you said, extensively. They can still hold their own in the typical Michelin-starred restaurants, and they'll order the nice things. But come home, they're also not starving because they will eat, the local food very well
Yeah.
with you. Yeah.
So that's that. So that's the balance, which is very
Yes.
commendable because I think you would agree with me. This day and age is very difficult. Sometimes you find some of our kids so westernized they can't relate to
No.
the traditional cultures, and sometimes you feel, oh, there's a little bit of a missing out,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with that. And I'm glad that like you said, that you continue to foster that
Yes.
traditional part of it. Not, I mean, there's some things about our culture that we'd rather not continue with, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
it that we can. It's very
We can,
wonderful
yeah,
to
it's
pass
very,
on
yeah,
and all
exactly.
that. Thank you for that, and I'm sure all our big sisters that are on there are very proud of what we are saying.
I hope so.
Now, one thing I want to say is I know that you, for example, I mean, and I say this, I mean, with all sincerity, always want the best for your kids, and you've always tried to do that. And sometimes I know that it always comes out like, this is, I want the best for my kids, but sometimes, how do you make it in such a way that it's you wanting the best and it cannot be translated as a demand? Like, oh, this is what is good for you and this is what you're supposed to do. How do you
This
balance
is a
that?
pattern.
Do you understand what I'm saying? How
Okay.
do you balance that? I want the best versus this. I mean, it's not translated into a demand.
Oh,
Hello,
wow. My
grandma.
mom just joined. Hello, Grandma G. So, okay, I must say, confession. I'm learning to be more of what I call a helicopter mom, which is sort of
You
just
are learning to
being,
be a helicopter mom.
I'm learning to be because I was not always like that, and which is basically being far enough to oversee what they're doing, but close enough to be able to swoop in if there's an issue.
Okay.
So I found, for example, with my older one, she was so fastidious right from young. She wanted to be a doctor, a neurosurgeon, and I encouraged and I pushed. Pretty much what you call a bit of a pushy mom, especially when it comes to education. And I always like to
Education.
remind them that do they know how much pounds is versus naira? But
So you better do well.
I exactly. So I always set, I must confess, I set really high expectations. I always say, look, your A levels, sorry, your GCSEs, I expect nothing less than A's, A stars, because you've got everything that you need to be able to perform at the height of your achievements. And she was always primed, and I must confess, I really, especially my older one, I really pushed her so much that when she decided that she wanted to go a different direction completely, which is she's now studying politics, international relations, and something policy advocacy or whatever, I can't remember. It took her almost 5 months to 6 months before she could even tell me. And she was telling her counselor then in school that, oh, my mom is going to be so disappointed this. And, you know, when she came about it, I was really angry initially that no, in fact, I made her do triple A-level subjects just with the hope that she would change her mind. So let's be prepared, add some sciences
Wow.
in. Yeah, so I really pushed. And with hindsight, I realized that, okay, I really didn't need to do that because she's really following a path. If anybody knows Zara well enough, which you do, I think she's really what we call a round peg in a round hole. She's really where she ought to be in terms of where her natural affinity is, where her natural, what we call, you know, joie de vivre, where her strength lies. I mean, she can talk you out of anything. She can talk you into convincing anything. And I learned with that experience, and I've learned so much that I'm almost, in fact, I realized on the call, I learned so much that I totally did a 360 and sort of moved back completely. You know, so I have the conversations with Ariella. Oh, what do you want to do? Okay, I'm fine. This, oh, I'm fine. I want to do fashion. I'm fine.
Ariella,
You know, I'm trying
put
to.
your
Oh,
fingers in your ears now.
you know, because I realized that what I was trying to do was really, and we do that a lot. We live vicariously through our kids. We shouldn't.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's really, if there's anything I can say as a mother that we do that we really need to stop, is just living through our kids. We can't do that. And I confess I did that initially. And I found that since sort of taking a step back and sort of letting things evolve, and obviously you still dutifully follow through, you still guide, but I've
Yes.
honestly
Yes.
found out that through just letting go,
Yes.
I'm a bit more settled. I'm a bit more, you know, so, you know, my younger one will call me, oh, mommy, I had a test. I didn't do too well. I'm like, okay. Well, you're not mad? I'm like, no, I'm not mad. And then I'll ask her, what did you get? You know, she go, oh, I got a B instead of an A. So secret, I'll go, oh, but you have to try it better next time. But secretly in my mind, I'm like, okay, at least she didn't say she got a D or an E, you know. But I've learned that we need to let go. But I mean, there's a space as well, though, and I say this with a bit of caution. There's a space for letting go, but there's still a space for being there as a guide, you know. And I always tell them that my kids look at me and they tell me, in fact, oh, mommy, you work too hard, or mommy, and I tell them that the good thing is, you know, and you know, I enjoy what I do. You know, my dream of a job, I don't work for the benefits of working. I work for the legacy of the projects that I leave behind. You know, I was talking
Yes.
to somebody yesterday. I said, you know, my best project to date now that I'm currently doing is providing power for the new. Lagos State is rebuilding the Massey Street Hospital into. It's going to be a big children's hospital, and I'm excited about it. And they're looking at me thinking, hospital. I'm like, yeah, but you don't know what that is going to portend for countless of kids, you know, the access. So I always tell them, I tell my kids that you have to live for something that excites you. You have to live for something that pushes you, that, you know, keeps you awake at night dreaming, oh, how do I do this? And you know, if we push them too hard and tell them, oh, you know, I need you to study architecture, you need to do accounting, you need to be a doctor, just because those are the vanilla traditional routes that we were brought up in, then we're doing them a disservice.
Yes. Yeah. Lovely, well-rounded. I mean, let me say, I couldn't put it better about myself, but you know me, I speak English anyway. So, I'm telling you, but that is so amazing. The fact that, and I like the fact that you saw it when you were trying to demand what you thought was best. And
Mm-hmm.
you saw it when you found out that letting go and allowing it to evolve, while at the same time you still keep an eye on it anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
if you think
Yeah.
this is not going to work, it's not as if you're going to say, well, do whatever you like.
No,
You're still
no.
going to be like,
That
exactly.
you intervene at some point.
You intervene exactly, and you'd be like, you know, this one is not going to happen. And anyway, if
Mm-hmm.
you need power, you know, you grab the rest of us and say, go and talk to your, go and talk to your daughter.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know,
You
like I
know,
always said, you know, parenting is community. It takes a community to raise a child. It's not just the mom or the dad. It really, a well-rounded child is a child that has gone through the community of
okay,
people
and that
around the parents.
that's good because that was I was just going to ask you this that question, like, how much do you take, you know, do you think it's healthy or helpful or advisable to take advice or to seek counsel from other moms? You know, how much of that do you think is advisable? Do you think it's
You know,
helpful? Do you think, you know, do you think it's helpful? Do you think it should be avoided as much as possible and it should be just a last resort? What do you think?
no, so for me, you know, I always say no counsel is bad counsel. It's just how you interpret it and how you imbibe it. So I, for one, you know, I have this firm belief no one is a repository of knowledge.
Yeah.
And who better than people that have gone beyond, you know, ahead of you in terms of not even in parenting, just in life generally. And so I take a lot of advice. Most times, in fact, I mean, coming from the kind of family I come from, you don't even need to seek it. You know, you always have one auntie calling
We
you,
tell
hey,
you.
hey, Muriza, you
We
know,
tell you.
Murizara, Lori, Instagram, blah, 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 or, you know, you know, you know, I'm sorry, I'm speaking Yoruba, you know, Ariella, cook me, you know, so I quickly go, oh, your auntie, your uncles are saying you don't call, you don't, you know, but you know, all jokes aside, I think that it takes a community. So I never shy away from advice. At times there will be some advice, well intentioned. So let me put it out there, well intentioned, but don't fit the stereotype or don't fit the present position you're in or the child is in, or doesn't come with the full knowledge of why the child is acting that way, you know. So those ones you try and manage and you do the typical, okay, I've heard, I'll let her know, I'll speak to her. And then you find the appropriate time to put that in if it's not at that point in time. But for me, I mean, I welcome advice, and I've had advice from the countless sisters around I have around me. You know, I have some friends that, you know, I've known for a very long time that I call, you know, lifelong friends that would also go, oh, this or that, or should we do this with the kids? I mean, you know, it's just, you can never finish with advice, with counsel. You know, just last week my sister-in-law already sent me a couple of articles, and you know, she goes, oh, I think this would be right for Ariella, you know, a program. You know, it's just it's because where I think is also evidence of our culture and the way we are as Africans, and I'll bring it home even as Nigerians. Everybody really looks for the best, you know, for you. And you know, they see something and they feel, oh, this will fit, you know, like what she sent to me. By the time I read through it, I realized that she's actually really read through this for her to know that this is for Ariella. You know, please, let's see if, you know, let's see how we can talk to her to see if she'll be interested in this program. It's like a mentorship leadership program, you know, for 13 to 16-year-olds, you know. And it takes a community, because she could, I mean, she probably would have thought, oh, I don't have any girl that age, and just forget about it. But she remembered that, oh, I have a niece that would, you know, benefit from it. And also, you know, we never stop learning as individuals. And we, you know, so for me, I always know that, again, going back to my mantra, no one is a repository of knowledge. There are things out there that so many people know much more than I do. And so I would never shy away from that advice. I would never shy away from, and if I think it's not really needed at that point in time, or it's not fit for that particular season, then you know, I would just pack it away. I mean, and
Yeah.
then see if there's a time to utilize that advice, you know, or remonstration or what
But
have you.
if you don't need it, you don't need it really.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
if you don't need it, you don't need it.
If
Excellent.
you
Thank
don't,
you
you
so
don't.
much.
If you don't, you
If
don't.
you don't need it, you don't need it. Thanks for all the people that have joined while we were. Mope, I see you. Thank you, everyone that has joined us while we've been talking. I said this is a special program because I'm talking to my sister. Yes, blood
Mm,
sister.
yes.
Olayide Williams. And I've got a lot of my sisters. I've got mom on here. I've got, everyone. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we're learning as we do. Like I said on Mom's Word, we're finding out how we can be better moms, sharing experiences, how we
Hmm.
can help our young people. And for those who don't know, I normally host every 2 Tuesdays. I normally host a program called Young and Strong, where I'm talking to young people. I'm
Which I
finding out.
enjoy a lot, by the way. So I
Yes,
enjoy that a lot.
yes, where we talk to the young people and find out what they think, and you'll be amazed at the amount of wisdom that our young people carry these days.
Carry,
So,
yes.
if you want to see that, I think the next one is in 2 weeks. I'll be talking to another young man, and so I always like to find out the parents' perspective, which
Mm.
brings me to the next question, which is something that one of my young people what was it, the community here supporting?
It's
Yes, support.
supporting. Yeah, I feel it.
Yes, one of my young people or young and strong said parents should tell us why. And this came from we're having the conversation, and she said a lot of times parents just say do this and do that, and when we say why, they're like, yeah, because I said so, and we don't understand. Do you
Hmm.
think our children really deserve an explanation? Should we tell them why?
So I would answer this way. You have to realize that there's a generational gap. We were brought up, do as I say, not do as I do. We were brought up, let's use the military terminology. You just hear go, you don't hear come. You just obey before complain.
Friends, yeah.
But the reality of it is, for this new generation, the younger ones, they you can't you need to carry them along. Gone are those days where you just say jump and they'll ask you how high. They demand from you, just explain to them, this is why I want you to jump. I want to see how tall you can reach. We can't parent that same way, just telling them do this without the why.
Mm.
I know it sounds controversial. A lot of people will probably still say, no, you're the parents, you lay the law, obey before command. But trust me, it doesn't work that way anymore. And the earlier we realize that, the earlier we can have, a better relationship, even at the critical or at the difficult phases when that tends to happen. The nature of how they're brought up, they're more inquisitive. They're extremely inquisitive. And it's just the nature of how, even education, learning, everything has evolved. So I always find myself having to, honestly, I think so much, especially when I want to introduce something that might be a bit controversial or something that the girls are going to kick back. I always have to, go through my head. Okay, how do I broach this? How do I get them to understand why this is so or why they need to do this? Just because by nature they're inquisitive. We can't, it's not them being difficult or them
Or
being
rude or
not,
disrespectful.
yeah, disrespectful or not malleable or what have you, but it's just the nature of how their generation, and they're brought up to think. They're not just brought up to do, and which is why you find out that a lot of them, their evolution is different from the way we thought vanilla type, go to school, marry 2.5, die.
Okay, I
they
think
they
I need.
they're more they're more exploratory. They need to understand, okay, this is why we do this. This is why I'm doing this. This is the effect this has, or this is the effect that has. And the reality of it is, the sooner we understand that and get with the program, the better. A lot of people don't agree with this. A lot of people our generation or older don't agree with this. They'll just tell you things like, yeah, but I'm the parent, I know better. And that has never stopped. You will always be the parent and you would always know better. Knowing better comes with the advantage of age, the advantage of wisdom, and the advantage of experience. So you will always,
Yes.
they can't meet you up with that, but you have to learn how to get them to meet you at the level you want to without just loading it over them. You can't load it over them again. It
Not
won't work.
anymore.
No, it won't work anymore. It won't.
Okay.
So I agree with that. As
Yeah,
difficult
so
as it might be, but yeah.
I know, and I guess it's a carryover from how we were brought up. But you're absolutely right. There's so much knowledge. What you think you're telling them is not necessarily rocket science. It's
No,
not what they've
no,
never heard
no,
before.
no. Heard
So
before.
you coming and laying it down like this is
Like
brand
exactly. This
new.
is,
They're
yeah.
like, yeah, but I still don't agree with it, and it's helpful. And how do you think that? How do you think building a relationship with the children will help with that? Let me tell you why I say this. A lot of my young people that I spoke to said that they would rather talk to their peers rather than to their parents. And the only times where they would talk to their parents when they're going through things is when it reaches critical stage, where it's either I better tell or the police are going to come knocking at your door,
At the door.
or or
Mm,
the bank is going to call you, or you're
mm.
going to find out because school is going to call you.
Call you.
Why why don't our children talk to us? Why would they gravitate to? Why do you think they would gravitate to their peers and not to parents?
Okay, so there are various reasons for that. I think first of all, it boils down to how we navigate or build a relationship with our kids. So don't get me wrong. I've never subscribed to that whole, do I call it new age way of saying, oh, my daughter is my friend. No, my daughter is my daughter. I'm the mother, she's still the daughter. So that those
Yes.
boundary lines are never crossed. We don't need to be chummy. I don't need to be your best chum. Go and find your best chum in school. But at the same time, we have to have a relationship such that they can call you and tell you that I've messed up. I've messed up. And I've given various examples. My younger one will call and tell me, oh, mommy, I didn't do too well in that exam. And I'm like, oh, why? And she'll go things like, yeah, and I know you're going to be angry with me because you always tell me the pounds is this to the naira. I'm like, yes, I have to keep reminding you the pound, is going up against the naira. So study hard, But that has never stopped her from coming to tell me that, I messed up. Same thing, with my older one. She would, especially now that, like I said, she's 18 going on, not 19, going on 30. But she would still come, and she would tell me, I messed up. I had a fight with this friend, or I did this. And, and I always say because of the fact that they know two things. There's judgment, but, it's just, there's a scripture that says, after judgment, you show mercy. And we sit down and we say, okay, so look, how do we fix this? What do you think? And even as we're doing that, I mean, I still had an incident with my younger one yesterday where I was so livid with her. I was extremely livid with her, and she knew it. And, after that, she still send me one very long extended text. I'm sorry, I've disappointed you as a daughter, but I still go back to her and I tell her that exactly, very long story, right? But I still went back and I said to her, look, I just don't want to talk to you now. So this morning, I FaceTimed her, told her where, what she was wrong, what she did wrong, how to handle things. And, I would still always want and it takes a lot because it's a delicate balance. You become too tough, you chase them away, and you become too soft, you can't
They lose
demonstrate, or you
respect,
can't
don't
put,
they?
yes, they lose respect. So it's a real delicate balance. But, having said all of that, I always say, that's why I always talk about, the community. Even if they're not able to talk to me, I always welcome the fact that you should always have somebody that's accountable. So whether it's a senior cousin, in their case, they have loads of cousins that are older than them, or an aunt, that they feel that, oh, I'm going to go tell Aunty Bosun, or I'll tell Princess Shore, that you should always, your kids should always have someone of the older generation that they can talk to. I'm not dispelling the fact that talking to their friends matter and all whatnot. But you have to remember that talking to your friends, they're just going to egg you on. Yes, they were wrong. That's because they're young. I mean, they don't have the benefit or the hindsight of experience or age.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important that in as much as, yes, you have your friends or friend you can talk to, there should always be that accountability in the form of an older person who you can talk to. Whether it's your mom, it's your aunt, there should always be that.
There should always be that. Thank you so much for making us feel better. because because yes, that was something that they kept coming up with, and I've asked the moms, and he talked about building, and you have said exactly the same thing, like you have to build a relationship with your children.
You have to.
And there was one statement that one of my young adults made. I think it was Ira, and he said, "The fact that you're my parent doesn't mean that you command respect from me.
Exactly.
You have to earn it still."
You have to earn it.
That blew me. I tell you, these young people are amazing. And I was like, "What?" He said, "Yes." And he said something like, parents come and they talk to you that because I'm your parent, I can say this. And, it was like, you're my parent, but have you built that relationship that allows you to say it to me? And I thought, okay, all right then. Amazing that as parents, because you're a parent, doesn't mean you have a relationship, does it?
No. I mean, a parent goes beyond just that biological, carrying. It goes way beyond that. In fact, the actual job starts from when the child is there and really cultivating that relationship. And I use the word cultivating because really that's what it is. You're cultivating a relationship. You're building it, block by block.
Yes. And another thing, one of my young people, I keep talking about my young people because I'm sure that will help to, continue for us to think about it and say, one of my young people said, I think it was the last one I did, the Mimu said, parents should calm down. She said, when we bring bad news, she said, when we bring bad news to you and when we say some things, don't lose it. Because when you lose it, we won't come back. Yeah. She said, learn to, and I said, you can't blame us because if you come and you say something that's really difficult,
you can't. You can't.
We react. But she said,
we
yes,
have
but
to.
But she said they should learn to calm down, which I found very, very interesting. But at the back of my mind, I think what he taught is that our reactions, we shouldn't automatically think we have a right to just do anything because we're the parents. We have to also understand the effects that they have on our kids. That everything we do
has.
Okay, all right. Ariella is telling you she has catechism now.
Okay, right. Ariella, off to catechism. Get off the call. So no.
That's go on.
While I understand that the reality of it is, as a parent, you would our reaction most of the time comes from a place of I wouldn't say anger. It's just, disappointment that I wouldn't expect you to behave like this, or I wouldn't expect you to do this or to do that. And the reality of it, the truth is, at that point in time, there's little or nothing you can do to help your reaction because you're just so hurt. And I always say that they too should understand the fact that in as much as you bring that to us and we also hurt, you're not the only one who the action, has caused a reaction in. It causes it in us as well. And that's why I gave you an example. Like yesterday, I was really livid, but the only way I could sort of, neutralize it was not to talk to her yesterday. So I had the benefit of, let me just sleep on it, and which is something I do a lot. So that for me is one mechanism I've learned. I even in everything, with my kids, with work, I've learned to sleep on it so that I can then, it gives me the benefit of by the next day or a couple of hours later, I can tell you how I feel, but a lot of the anger has dissipated. So I'm able to make more sense.
Okay.
And I think for me, that's generally what works every single time. So when, at times, Zara or whatever, send me a message and I see a message, I'm mad, I'm vexed, but I don't even respond because, they always say once you say something, you can't take it back. You
Take
really
it
can't
back.
take it back in
Yeah.
anything, any situation. So I've learned to always just take a deep breath and just, so in that case, I mean, by this morning, by the time I, spoken to her and told her exactly how I felt and what I felt, and, I was able to tell her off, but I didn't have to. If I had done it yesterday, I was livid yesterday. I would probably have said so many things that maybe with hindsight, I didn't need to go that far for her to see that I was already angry anyway.
Yes.
But the truth about, but the young ones also need to understand, there's a place for everything. There's a place and time for everything. And honestly, there's a place for discipline. Don't let us always get out of that, thinking that, oh, we always have to be nice. And, the young ones feel as if we owe them to always be nice and, don't shout at me. Don't, no, I'm sorry. Some of my parenting outlook still borrows a lot from the traditional beliefs that maybe I was brought up in as well. So there will always be the place for discipline, always.
Of course, of course. I mean, even the Bible says, "Spare the rod and spoil the child." We might not
Spoil
use
the
the rod,
child,
but I mean,
exactly.
you
But
you
yeah,
still use
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
discipline you have to
exactly.
do. So, I mean, going on from there, do you think, and should we allow criticism from our children? Can we dare to be vulnerable with our children, knowing that we discipline them, we guide them,
um
we can
so my
we be
jury is a bit
vulnerable with
out of
our
that.
children? The
Okay,
jury
so
is
I can only speak for myself personally. I don't practice that. So most times they see the me that, is the mom, is the advocate, but also is the strong one. And the only reason why maybe in my case I don't do that is also because, I have girls. Girls are emotional beings, and the same way that they're emotional beings, they will use that against you. You can't allow yourself to be so vulnerable. No, young ones, let's be honest, they will use it against you. And for me personally, I don't do that. I'm not, so I'm not saying that they can't tell or whatever, but I'm not going to sit you down and like, oh, you have to understand because mom is going through this, and I'm a bit. No, it's just never been my style. I doubt it will ever be my style. It might work for some,
okay.
and it's not to say, look, I can do constructive criticism, but it's in a respect. It's presented in a respectful way. I think I can do that much, but no, not beyond that.
Okay, so in the sense of somebody saying that, when she messed up one time, her mom was able to like say, this has happened to me before, and this is how I dealt with it, and all that. And the young person said she felt a bit better in the sense that she didn't feel as condemned because it was like, oh, so mom understands what I'm going through. Do you understand?
Okay,
So do you think that is a bit
in
not that
that
in the sense that
light,
you show them all your yeah?
no, no, but also in that light, I can tell them in third party. Okay, so I know someone who's gone through this.
I had a
Again,
friend.
exactly. So that's just me.
Friday, you are not perfect. Come on.
So that's just me. I'll say, I have a friend who, so I can third party it, but I'm sorry, no, I'm not,
Sister,
it's just
sister.
personal. It's just not me. It's just not me.
Okay, okay. So
I'm
we
not
will
perfect.
continue. I know. I
Mm.
know.
Mm.
Okay. Now, I mean, as we're drawing to a close, I mean, we could talk.
Okay.
You and I can talk for ages. What I'll say is, what is one thing you would like to say to young people as a mom? If this was Young and Strong, and I said, okay, I'm going to bring up my sister, Lide, she's a mom. I want her to address young people. What is one thing you would say to them?
So for me, the one thing I would say, and which I always say to, my Zara or to my, I have a lot of nieces, as you know, and nephews that are
Yeah.
older one. And I always tell them, live your life, but live your life in a way that you will look back and you won't say, oh gosh, I messed up big time. You will always mess up in the little things, but never mess up with the, you know, intentionality of living your life. So I tell them, play, party. I mean, I have so many friends on this call who tell me that Aunty Lady is a party auntie. She's the fun auntie, the kids, but they
It
also
took
know at the same.
party with the family.
But yeah, it is. That's the truth. I mean, they know all my nieces. I mean, Christmas, my house is full because everybody comes, we're partying from here and everything. But that never takes away from the serious side of you. Live your life in such a way that you will look back and you'll give yourself, a pat on the shoulder that I've done good. That's
Right.
always my message.
I mean, you make mistakes, but
You would
don't
definitely
live
do.
to make mistakes. You
No, don't
understand?
don't
Let
don't
them
live
be
in
the
your mistakes. Don't
exception.
dwell in them. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
always, be intentional about your goals, your aspirations, and, work towards it. Play, have fun, because honestly, I'm one of those all work and no play. You should always, but be intentional about achieving those goals.
Excellent. Thank you, Lady. And on
Thank
that
you.
other note, what would you say? What is one thing you would like to say to other moms? We've got loads of moms on here. We've got grandma on there. We've got aspiring moms on there. We've got, all kinds of moms. We've got some of us who are working with other people's children. What is one thing that you would say to other moms?
Moms. So, and I'll repeat what I started off with. I told you, parenting is not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fit all. You have to study and know your child, and you have to parent in such a way that speaks the language of that child. One of the best books I ever read in my life was called The Five Love Languages for Kids. There's the adult one, because it helps you to understand the language your child speaks to. And the only way you can have a really good relationship is speaking the language they understand. So for any mom, aspiring mom, aunties, uncles, everybody out there, it's not a one size fits all. And parenting, I always say, is not a race, because I've seen so many moms and dads race. There's always an objective. Okay, common entrance, GCSE, a university, marry, kids. No, don't put a race, and a target to every stage of a parenting. Parent for life, parent as if you're going to be part of their life for the rest of their life.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I know that there's always been like, it's amazing how you just said it, because it's just like, when you have those like light bulb moments, don't
Mm-hmm.
like target. We've all used to live like
No.
that. You do
Yeah, we
primary school,
did. We did.
then you go. And so sometimes
You
it throws us off when they don't meet a particular and something happens, and then,
exactly,
you're
exactly.
left wondering, by now they should have been here and
Done
they're
this,
not here. And
done that.
then
Yeah.
there seems to be a problem where there doesn't need to be one.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're just like, I'm with you for life, and
For
we take
life.
it,
For life.
we can have the targets, but if it doesn't happen, we're still together,
And we go to the drawing board. Yes.
and we do it. That's amazing. One final question, and maybe if I have another one, I might throw it in because you're my sister. Anyway, I know that, yeah, you say you party, but I know you're a very hard worker, and I know that you're also a woman of faith. What would you say, what part does your faith play in your role as a mom?
I think it's everything. It's so funny. Once my daughter sort of not reported me to one of her aunties in court that, yeah, my mom uses church, church, church for everything. When I talk to her, I can't say like that. Church, church, God won't like this, God won't. So when I think, oh my goodness, am I throwing church too much at her? But, I think for me, my faith is, I align everything towards my faith and my belief system. And I always say there's no fuzzy line, there's no gray, black, it's black and white, you know. And like I keep saying, please, the caveat is I'm not perfect, but my faith, you know, is probably the most important element of my parenting style. I don't always get it right, but I believe that imbibing that culture and the belief system, it helps in my parenting journey, makes it a bit easier.
Okay, right. Like I don't know what else to say, but I mean, I've liked the light bulb moments that we've had. I mean, there's nothing as lovely as actually sitting with a sibling, having something
Yeah.
like this. Normally you would talk to,
Yes.
friends and you talk to contemporaries and talk like, but when you sit with your sister and you're like exchanging and there's still wisdom being exchanged, and I think it's very important that at each point in time, no matter what conversations you have, and I think it translates also to parenting, there's
Yeah.
always the place for wisdom. There's
Wisdom.
no place for assumptions. There's no place
Assumptions.
for where
Yes.
I'm the parent,
Yes.
you're the child,
Yeah,
or this is my
exactly.
child. Don't touch my don't touch my child, and all that. I mean, I don't know what else to say because you've talked about it all.
I'm just glad I didn't get on the plane.
I'm not sure if I'll have forgiven you. Maybe
I'm
we'll have had
telling
a
you,
family meeting.
family
We'll
meeting
have
to
had
resolve
a
this.
family
I'm
meeting.
so
We'll have
sorry.
had a family meeting if you had missed this session. So Stampo and Tisha, everybody who is on that box,
Everybody would have
all
been
had
involved.
that. Lady, thank you so much for
No,
joining us
thank
once
you. Thank
again.
you so
Thank you to
much.
everyone that has come on live. Tessie, I saw you. Funola, thanks. Funola is another cousin. She does.
Yes.
I said I must mention her here, so let me quickly mention her. She makes this stuff. She does handmade jewelry. Thank you for being here, Tumilara.
Thank
I
you.
don't know you, but thank
That's
you, Titi.
Sholakwe. To me, Lara, that's
Oh my
Sholakwe.
goodness, Shalakwe, you need to come on this live. I have to get her on as well. So Shalakwe,
Yes.
make sure, because I know Shalakwe is parenting young adults as well, and a couple of, I think she has
Yes.
teenagers now.
Oh, she
You
does.
know,
Yes.
yes, I remember. We go way back.
Way back.
Thank you so much. Have Johnny Mercies as you continue. I've told you all this flying.
We're see,
Anyway.
we're together next week. Don't worry.
Yes. Sorry, we're cousins, we're sisters. Well, I know you're going to come and join me. So just book a time. Let me know when you're ready to come and talk because I know you've got fountains of wisdom as well to share with
Thank
us.
you, everybody, for joining. I hope
Everybody for
it
joining
was
us. Grandma G,
interesting.
thank you. Auntie
Yes. Oh, my mom
Shaw.
is on the line as well.
Yes, Mr. Books, Bobs, all the
Everybody.
people who pray.
And I have a group of Joyous Jolloffers friends who are also on the call. We have an
On the call.
interesting group called Joyous Jolloffers, and we jollof a lot.
Joyous Jollof. You know what we're going to do with that? I think, now on Instagram, you can do a three-part
Group,
thing where I get a couple of
yes. You're
you
gonna get
and
a
you guys
couple
are going
of
to join.
them.
Larry, I see you're joining just before I'm ending. That's a lovely, lovely young friend of mine, Larry Harrison. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
So that's it for us on Mom's Word. Lady, I had fun.
I did too. Thank you so
I
much.
knew we were going to have fun.
And
And I
Tunde,
mean,
thank you for joining at 5 o'clock on the dot. Tunde
yeah,
just
when we're
joined.
just finishing, that's about brother. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Mom's Blood comes up once a month where I talk to another parent. I'll be talking to another parent at the end of next month. Please feel free to join us. And if you're interested in hearing what the young people have to say, join us on Young and Strong.
You guys should
On
listen to that. I always enjoy it.
It's amazing. I love young
Yeah.
people. I work with young people. They're my favorite kind of people. All right, Lady, Johnny Mercy. Let
Thank
me see you
you.
next week
Yes,
in
you
face to
will.
face, face to face.
Yes, you
God
will.
bless you,
Thank you,
everyone, and have
everybody.
a lovely week. Bye,
You
everyone.
too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.